Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, everyone, for making it. I really appreciate your time dedicated for this webinar. Allow me first to introduce myself. My name is Hussein Mansour, and I'm the General Manager and Senior Consultant at Kaitas. It's lovely to see you all joining our session today, and I really look forward to make it as useful and productive for you. The reason or the fact that you are here just sends out one message that you are interested in psychometrics, you are interested to understand what tools are out there, how can you benefit from the tools that are out there to make your hiring process and selection process more informative. We are scheduled for 1 hour for this session. It's going to be somewhat an interactive session. It really depends on the number of people joining. I would love it if you please put in the chat any questions that you have as we progress in the webinar, and I will make sure to address your questions by the end of the webinar. Little background about myself. I am Hussein Mansour again, General Manager and Senior Consultant at Kaitas. I have been in this field for over 18 years now. Kaitas is a company that has the authorization or the distribution rights of four major or global renowned companies in the field of talent assessment and testing solutions. I've been involved extensively in supporting organizations with their talent acquisition, talent development, talent retention, and talent management initiatives. Today's agenda is really about discussing or demonstrating the hiring dilemma, the common pitfalls that we all fall in when it comes to talent acquisition. We are going to define the hiring, what is hiring for potential, and how is hiring for potential different than hiring for what we see on the CV and what we capture from the interview. We are going to explore the types of psychometric assessments available. We'll tap on how to interpret the results of psychometric assessments. I'll be sharing an example of different types of psychometric assessments that can be generated before we move into a real case example, showing you some statistics and some real studies about the impact of integrating psychometrics as part of your hiring process. And then we'll conclude with beyond selection and beyond hiring, where can we apply the psychometric? How can we use the psychometric assessments in a strategic manner? And finally, we will conclude with a question and answers session. Before we start and kick in, I'd like to give you a moment to see if you have any questions now for me, any expectations before we go into the agenda. Okay. Usually the case is I ask the audience to introduce themselves, but mashallah, we have 23 people. It will take time to give every person a chance to introduce him or herself. However, we'll definitely be in touch with you post the webinar, thanking you for attending the webinar and learning from you the output, what did you take away, the takeaways from this webinar. All right, let's jump into it. So, Just a disclaimer, I have with me here my colleagues Nadine and Shannon and other team members from Kitus. They will be co-hosting the session with me. I would like to start with a poll, please. Kindly take a moment and share with us what is your biggest hiring challenge? I encourage participation from everyone, please. Interesting to see 71% poor fit. Still two-thirds, more than two-thirds poor fit. Come on, guys, we see only 13 people participated out of 21. Okay, so it's very obvious. Let's view the results. As you can see, 80% of you chose poor fit as one of your biggest hiring challenge, followed by lack of performance, then turnover. Very interesting to see this result. Well, um, why is this happening? The hiring dilemma. We face today, what we face today is that we are often forced to make big decisions based on incomplete information. We really or we heavily rely on resumes, and there's a distinct difference between what the resume is telling us and what is the reality of post hiring the individual. Interviews, they tend to be subjective. I still recall a very a supported research based on I think it was a sample of over 400 companies where they invited hiring managers to participate, and the objective or the purpose of this research is really to identify um, how long does it take them during the interview to make a decision whether to hire or not to hire this individual. And the outcome was staggering. The result came out showing that the average time a hiring manager takes to make a decision whether to hire or not is 4 minutes. The rest of the time is typically to justify this decision that the hiring manager has made during the first 4 minutes of the interview. Hence, we can conclude to an extent interviews can be subjective, especially that access to information, access to data, whether through Google or now the use of ChatGPT and other AI apps, makes it helps me become smarter, okay, and more relevant and much prepared, okay, for the interview and the role that I'm applying for. Past versus future performance is another challenge that is being explored and demonstrated in the workplace. Cultural fit versus role fit, speed and accuracy. Allow me to elaborate more on each point. When it comes to resumes and reality versus reality, candidates may have strong resumes but lack the competencies or behaviors needed for the role. Many companies and many hiring managers, okay, they hire because the CV is appealing. They were able to give the right questions during the interview. They hire for the competence of the person in the role, but they don't give much attention to the potential of the person for the role and for the potential of the person to grow with the organization. Interviews can be subjective, sorry. Managers often rely on gut feeling or personal bias in interviews, leading to inconsistent hiring or poor decisions. And as well, I recall a research showing that many hiring managers, if not most hiring managers, they use themselves as a reference point for hiring a person. How close or how matching or how similar the candidate is to themselves, to the hiring manager. Past versus future performance. Hiring based on past assumes it will translate to future success. Many of us headhunt candidates' talent from other companies, and we analyze and study the performance of that individual in that company. Hence, we look at the past experience and we assume that whatever performance that the person demonstrated in that company will be transferred to our company. However, this is not always true. Culture fit versus role fit. A candidate may align with company values but not possess the capabilities for the job, or vice versa. Speed and accuracy. Pressure to fill roles. This is a common, dilemma now. Pressure to fill roles quickly can compromise the quality of hire, resulting in poor fit or high turnover. The result? Mismatches, poor performance, and high turnover, unfortunately. Then, what does hiring for potential really mean? Hiring for potential is about future success. So it's about looking beyond the current need and the current role. It means looking beyond what's on paper and finding people who can grow, adapt, and thrive in your culture. Um, Hiring for potential denotes being future focused, adaptability, having the learning ability and learning agility, having cultural fit, and very important, having a growth mindset. I believe the majority of you would agree with me when I say that the majority of the talent populating the workplace now, okay, are very young, are the Gen Z, and what's beyond Gen Z. As a matter of fact, there was a research, I think it was published in 2023, predicting that by 2025, more than 75% of the people populating the workplace will be from Generation Z. This was already achieved, okay, towards I think the second half of 2024. So at a very fast pace, the young generation, the AI generation is populating the workplace, and they come with very unique characteristics that we need to pay attention to. Maybe in another session we can tap into their characteristics, okay, and how to manage them through a different webinar. Let's have another poll, okay? And I would like to know from you, have you used psychometrics before? Yes, no, or maybe you are considering it. Okay, lovely. Come on, guys, support me here. Only 13 out of 21 participations. Okay, so I can see the majority of you, over 80%, have used psychometrics. Let's end the poll here. And here's the result. 81% of you have used psychometric assessments before. 19% of you haven't used psychometric assessments before, and 1 or 6% considering to use psychometric assessments. That's excellent. Another poll, a quick one. For those of you who have used psychometrics, what kind of psychometrics have you used? 64% behavioral traits, 67%, 71% behavioral traits, 60 personality, 44% cognitive ability, interests and motives, 29% of you have used it. Ten more seconds to go. Last chance to put your answer. Okay. This is the result. 41% of you have used cognitive ability assessment, 53% used personality, 76% used behavioral traits. Now, some of you might be wondering what is the difference between personality and behavioral traits. There is a section about it. We'll talk more about it. 29% interests and motives, 18% 360 surveys, and 6% others, 12% none. Okay. So, from what I'm seeing, the majority of you have used behavioral traits assessments. Why assessments? What do they do? Assessments are tools to predict future performance. Psychometrics are tools that will help us predict in an objective manner what to expect of that individual in the future, what to expect in terms of how the individual reacts to different situations, what behavior that the person will demonstrate based on his personality or based on his tendencies. Psychometrics are scalable. What do we mean by that in this context? If you are not using psychometrics today, or if you are using multiple types of psychometric assessments within your organization, most probably you are not consistent in the way or the manner that you are hiring. You are not consistent in how you are attracting, selecting, and onboarding talent. Why is that? Imagine with me the following. Let's say you have a job opening for business sales representative. All right. And let's say you're not using currently a psychometric assessment tool, any psychometric assessments. You are relying on the CV. You are relying on the initial screening based on predefined criteria that you set. You are relying on the interview, and you are relying basically on the past experience of the person. You bring on board people, you hire new talent. However, you will most probably observe different performance levels between one person and another. Most probably, the reason this is because the performance indicators that you should be looking at for this particular role, which is a sales representative, were not measured in a consistent manner using a consistent measure. Hence, we are relying on whatever we get from past experience. We are relying on our first impression and how we feel about the person during the interview. We are relying on the quality of the competency-based interview questions addressed during the interview. When it comes to psychometric assessments, there are typically, especially for hiring, there are typically three main types. You have the cognitive ability assessment, you have the personality assessment, and you have the behavioral assessment or behavioral traits assessments. When it comes to cognitive ability, Cognitive ability has to do with my ability to learn, reason, and problem solve. My ability to learn, reason, and problem solve. Research that is documented shows that the cognitive ability of the person plays a very big role in the future performance of the person. Um, Hence, cognitive ability assessment it has been proven that it is one of the strongest, one, not the only, one of the strongest predictors of job performance in the future. Personality and behaviors, they're very, these two terms are very close to each other. They can be confusing. However, to make your life easy a little bit, let's differentiate between both. Personality assessments, they focus on our relatively stable traits in our personality. They focus on our relatively stable psychological traits that constitutes our personality. They describe how someone prefers to think and feel. They focus on motivations, preferences, and temperament. Sorry for that. They predict more general tendencies across situations and often used for development and team dynamics. However, behavioral assessments, where the majority of you have answered that you currently use behavioral assessments or you have used behavioral assessments, they measure observable or reported behaviors. They describe what someone tends to do or chooses. They focus on actions and tendencies. Behaviors are linked more to performance predictions in specific context compared to, let me just take the pointer here. Okay, compared to personality, it predicts across general situations. However, in behaviors, the prediction is in a specific situation, specific context, often used for selection and job fit. So let me give you an example. The definition of personality in psychology or in the science of psychology, personality is described as those relatively stable and enduring aspects of an individual, those aspects that distinguishes one person from another. Our personality is the outcome or the construct of tens, if not hundreds, of what is called behavioral traits. So our personality is a construct of tens, if not hundreds, of behavioral traits. Those traits define our tendencies most of the time. So just to make sure we are clear on that, as human beings, when we are born and as we grow, there are certain behaviors, there are certain traits that we inherit from our family, parents, surrounding, and there are traits that we acquire and polish, okay, through the experience we encounter as we grow older. We reach a stage in our life, usually at the age between 9 and 12 years old, we reach a stage where our personality, our behavioral traits become relatively stable. As we grow older and older, they become even more stable. However, God gave us or distinguished us from other beings because He gave us the free will. And because of our free will, we are able to adapt our behaviors. We are able to adapt how we conduct ourselves, how we project ourselves in different situations based on what I think is suitable for that particular situation. For example, let's say I'm an introvert. I'm a person who minds his own business. In the weekends, you see me with a very small circle of friends or family members. I don't really go out mingle. I don't network. This is my spontaneous, natural tendency. However, if it happens that I landed in a job that requires networking, that requires attending social events, that requires working in a team setting, I am, by my choice and free will, I am able to demonstrate a more extroverted behavior if I choose to do that. Nevertheless, what is my dominant tendency? The dominant tendency is my introverted behavior or introverted attitude. Behavioral assessments focus more on my dominating tendencies. How do I behave most of the time in my comfort zone? And it predicts, or they predict, how this tendency matches or how relevant is this tendency to specific job requirements, specific contexts. I hope I was able to help you differentiate between the two terminologies or the two types of assessments. In the market, as an assessment company and assessment provider, we usually receive requests from the market asking for behavioral competency assessment. And what most of our clients mean by that, they seek observable assessments that allows us and allows the client to observe the actual performance of the individual in specific contexts. Here I'm referring to a different type of assessment, being simulated activities, in-basket exercises, role plays. Even in competency-based interviews, we are able to predict the performance, and observe and predict the performance of the individual in terms of their behaviors. To demonstrate and help you really comprehend the context of psychometric assessments or the different types of psychometric assessments. What you see in front of you here, and I hope let me zoom in a little bit. Okay. What you see in front of you here is a sample of an assessment that measures multiple behavioral indicators along with cognitive abilities. Typically, we have a candidate applying for a job, let's say, and this candidate is called John. We ask John to complete a questionnaire online. What we get in return, we get the scores of John. The scale can be out of 10, it can be out of 5, it depends on the assessment, but we get a score for John on the scale. What some assessments offer as a unique feature is the ability to identify what is called the job profile or the job norm. On the same assessment that John has answered, some assessments provide you the ability to identify on the scale what kind of people, what kind of tendencies you are looking for each indicator for this particular role we are considering. In the example in front of you, on the right side, On the right side, you can see there's a shaded blue area. Typically, this shaded blue area would represent the job norm, or another way of describing it, the qualities of the star performers or the top performers working in this role, whether in your organization or similar organizations from the same industry, or regional or even global. The prediction that is offered to you because of the job norm feature is demonstrated in mapping the scores of John to the job profile or the job requirements, where you can see here, oh, I'm very sorry. Sorry, I closed by mistake, but I do need to open a different slide. Sorry for that. To demonstrate it in a visual manner better. Here we go. Okay, share. All right. I believe you can see my screen now. So to demonstrate or to summarize what I described just now, the assessment would typically provide you an indicator of the behavioral traits of the person, the cognitive ability of the person, and you can also consider the motives and interests of the person. Typically, you would have a reference of what represents the qualities that make the best performer in this particular role. Where John scored within the range is considered a good match. Where John scored outside the range with an insignificant gap, 1 or 2 digits gap, it's an indicator of a potential challenge in the performance of John in the future. Where the score is red, it's an indicator of a significant potential challenge in performance in the future. This information, through the color coding that you see in front of you, is very critical to help you make a better and an informed decision about whom to hire and whom to further investigate or further probe. In the example in front of you, you can see that John's behavioral match with what is expected or needed in the role is 87%. The cognitive match, however, is 49%. The interest match is 89%. The overall match is 72%. You might say 72% is a good overall match. As a matter of fact, we tell our clients, okay, an overall of 70 to 75%, preferably 75%, is considered a good match, indicating a good potential, okay, for this hire. However, one significant flag is the cognitive section or the cognitive ability of the person. Despite the fact that the person might show good attitude, good behavioral tendencies, matching to a very good extent with the behavioral competency requirements of the role, one area that you need to further investigate, further probe to see if it will constitute a significant challenge in the future, if it will hinder performance in the future or not, is the one score on working with words. Working with words measures one's tendency to understand, reason, and communicate using verbal media, using words. using vocabulary. A low score on working with words indicates a significant challenge in John's ability to express himself in words, a challenge in conveying ideas to others. Also, vice versa, receiving is an indicator of a potential challenge that John will not be able to comprehend and understand and process verbal media in a timely manner, verbal information and data in a timely manner. Now, the question is, if I am hiring for the role of, let's say, public relations, although the attitude is great, although interest is there, but this particular score on working with words will definitely hinder the performance of John, because public relations is all about what? Expressing, talking, and so forth. While if we are considering John, for example, for the role of, um, um, let's say, door-to-door sales. Door-to-door sales, this score, although it's anyways very low, it wouldn't impose a significant challenge in the performance of John for a door-to-door sales person, because this job basically is about learning about the product, memorizing the product's features and specifications, and that's it. It's more of a routine role. Unlike, for example, for those of you as HR professionals, or for those of you who are attending and have an HR or management consulting firm, it's all about talking. Our business is all about talking, expressing. This would impose a significant challenge if I'm a salesperson in this industry. Scaling. Many of our clients, still, although they have been users of our assessments, users of assessments in general for many years, use it strictly to filter out those candidates at the hiring stage, to select the best one, two, or three, and then they put the reports in the drawer. Many do not, for different reasons. I'm not going to tap into the different reasons, but many do not realize the power that this assessment can provide post-hiring to help manage the employee's life cycle within the organization, especially to help the hiring managers. Hiring managers who became line managers post-hiring, we frequently hear from them with, "I don't understand why is John behaving in an unexpected manner? Why is John reacting different to how I would react in different situations?" So there are question marks by line managers and hiring managers about the attitude of their team members. The answer is in the reports. The answer is in the psychometric assessments. Think about it like this. Psychometric assessments provides you with unbiased, highly predictive data about the individual, about the person, that can support and facilitate your decision for hiring and post-hiring. One of the applications, in a while I will show you the different types of reports, but one of the applications of the assessment, okay, is multiple job matching. So today I hired John as a sales manager or sales representative, but we are growing, we are scaling. I want to see if I can move John vertically or horizontally. You can simply take the same result of John and benchmark him against multiple roles to see how the person is fitting different roles within the organization. Let's say you have an employee today who is not showing good performance, but this employee already went through onboarding, went through training, knows our culture now, knows the people around him now. You may make the decision to exit this person because of low performance, or you might make the decision to, okay, where can we benefit from John somewhere else? We have spent significant time, money, and resources, okay, embedding John or integrating John within our organization. He's not performing in job A, but is there a job B where he can become more productive, more motivated, more interested, hence demonstrates better performance? You can still use the results of John to see how does he or she match different roles, whether vertically or horizontally, even for promotion, succession planning, and so forth. Okay. Before we jump into another topic, let me jump into the previous presentation. All right. Strategic use of psychometric assessments. Now, based on what I just described, all right, if you are using multiple tools, not just personality or behavioral assessment, in general, you are doing a good thing. If you are using assessments across all levels within the organization widely, okay, you are doing a good thing. By doing a good thing, I mean you match with most and the biggest successful, the biggest and the most successful organizations, okay, for example, Fortune 500 organizations. Role success profiles aligned to assessment data. If you are using the assessment today just for the purpose of getting the profile of the person, meaning I want to know, is the person extroverted, introverted, assertive, or follower, conforms with rules and policies, procedures, or not, subjective or objective. If the purpose is just to understand the profile of the person without having a clear criteria and a solid method to align the success factors of the role with the profile of the person, there is room for improvement here. And this is what the yellow color indicates, room for improvement. If your managers today are not trained to interpret reports, you are at risk. Risk of what? You are not realizing the full return on your assessment investment or investment on the assessment. The power of using the assessments post-hiring is equally is equally important to the power that the assessment offers you at the hiring and selection phase. Post-hire insights used for onboarding. During your onboarding or as part of your onboarding process, are you considering the assessment results? Are you considering the assessment reports? Assessments used beyond hiring, what I talked about before. There are multiple applications. If you are only and strictly using the assessment today for hiring, you are missing on a lot of advantages that the assessments can offer you post-hiring in retaining, developing, and basically growing and nurturing the talent within your organization. Different assessments offers different reports or different styles or types of reports. What you see in front of you are four typical and very common types of reports that can be generated from any assessment in general. You would have the summary report showing you a graphical overview. We'll show a sample, we'll see a sample now. You will have the individual report or individual profile, which typically talks to the person himself, to the candidate himself for self-awareness. You would have the interview report offering you competency-based, open-ended interview questions. Why? To support you during the interview process. And you will have the management report. The management report would typically provide what I like to call the user's manual of the employee, provides insights about the profile of the person, as well as tips for coaching and development. This is a sample of how the content would typically look like. You have already seen on the left side the graphical overview showing you the scores versus the job requirements, prediction of the job matches. Here you would see basically the competency-based interviews, and a strong assessment would give you competency-based interviews based on where the score is versus the required, not random posting of questions. The system would be selective in terms of what questions to provide. And this is my favorite report or report content, providing a comprehensive description that is user-friendly, does not really need training or certification to understand what does this score mean, followed by coaching and development suggestions. Now that I know that, for example, in this scenario, now that I know that John has the tendency to be conscientiousness, what can I do to ensure, as the line manager, what can I do, and how can I contribute to ensure that this tendency is sustained, and maybe I want to improve it. Maybe I want to develop it even further. I want to increase the efficiency of the person. I want to increase the ensure integrity of the person. The coaching and development suggestions here provide very useful insights that are practical and not theoretical, can be used and applied directly on the job. This is an example only of how reports would look like when it comes to psychometric assessments. Now, to make better informed decisions, how should you use such tools effectively? As I said earlier, it's very important that you define the role success profile. If you are a recruiter now attending this meeting, you would typically go to the hiring manager, okay, to ask some questions to understand more what kind of profile, what kind of characteristics, what are the characteristics, and what kind of attitude the hiring manager is looking for this particular vacancy. While this is a must, but the question is, what criteria, or do you have a defined system today that will help you really define the success factors of a role, really define the competency requirements of the role, really define, competencies are fancy, terminologies, or competencies are, in a broader sense, they are demonstrated by behavioral anchors or behavioral indicators. Do we have them defined, or we are relying solely on the heading or the title of the competency? This is very important. Does the hiring manager understand the competency and the behavioral anchors or not? This is very important to address. The recruiter himself or herself, do they understand the competencies, what they mean, the definition, and the behavioral indicators or not? Screen with assessments. Unfortunately, but I understand there's always a distinct difference between best practice and actual market practice. According to best practice, it's best to integrate the assessment at an early stage at the screening phase, okay, of the recruitment process before the interview, way before the interview. Why? So that when the person arrives to the interview, first of all, you would typically interview those who have or whom the assessment have predicted have high potential. What happens, and firsthand I have seen it, and I have collected, yeah, I mean, we always seek feedback from clients. It can happen that you disqualify a candidate based on the CV or based on the interview, but that candidate is higher potential than one that passed the interview. We discovered this later through what is called correlating between, what the assessment predicted and the actual performance of the person. If you apply the assessment at the screening at an early stage as a screening tool, you'd be able to filter those that have high potential of success, and those would go to the interview, where in the interview you validate, you further probe, and you select then after that. If you are using the assessment after the interview, it's still okay. I'm not saying it's bad. Of course, we need to consider many things, logistics and budgets. But if you are using the assessment after the interview, what happens, and we have seen it, is that you might have disqualified a candidate who is a better potential and better fit than that who passed the interview. This is what I'm trying to say. Of course, screening, validate with structured interviews. Now, one thing that we observed as a practice in the market in general, in the region, the whole region, companies conduct the assessment. They look at the reports match, or they read the report, okay, and then they do the interview. But during the interview, they don't consider some inputs from the report, from the assessment. They don't consider some discoveries they made to further probe during the interview. This is something we highly encourage. The assessment is a tool to help you, not to replace anything in the process. It's to support you. You go to the interview having already insights that are unbiased and objective more than subjective, to help you address the right questions and what to focus on during the interview. Here I'm referring to mainly the HR, the recruiter, because typically the hiring manager would focus on the technical match of the person, while the HR would focus on the non-technical soft skill, okay, behavioral match of the person. Manage employee performance. As I said, how you manage the employee's performance post-hiring is as important as putting the right person in the right job while hiring. So how are we doing that? Are we using the assessments in managing the employee's performance? Are we using the assessments, okay, in identifying the development requirements, okay, of the person? Sorry, this is meant to be retained, not retail. Apologies for that. Are we using the assessments to identify the areas of strengths, identify potential opportunities for development? Okay. Are we using the assessment to plan the career path of the individual? Career progression and succession planning. These are all different applications of the assessment. Very interesting. A study done in June, 2025 shows the before and after turnover impact after integrating the assessment as part of the hiring process. The data shows a 20 to 24% turnover reduction post psychometric integration. You can see in the green line, the turnover rate started declining every quarter in a steady pace. Before the assessment, before integrating the assessment, the turnover rate was above 25%, as you can see, and it went up to 30%, went down to 27 or so percent, then went up, but it was on the higher level, okay, of the graph. This shows, and I hope for those of you that are, have integrated assessments, the majority of you have used or are using assessments. It's very important and very critical, not for the sake of money, okay? Putting money aside, putting budget aside, how much did we spend, the dollars we spent. It's very important to conduct from time to time studies to see what is the impact of assessments that we are using on our processes. What is the impact of the assessments we are using in improving the quality of hire, in improving retention, in improving, for example, the tenure of the employee within the organization, and so forth. You will know through such studies if you are actually using the assessments, because it's already established that assessments do help organizations and people become better versions of themselves. When you conduct such studies, if you don't experience or see improvements in your figures, most probably you're not applying the assessment or you haven't integrated the assessment in the right manner. If you're seeing improvement, that's great. I would like, if you don't mind, in the chat, for those of you who have conducted such studies, share with us any insight in the chat, whether positive or negative. I would like to know if any one of you have actually conducted such studies, and if possible, what were the results? Another case, and this is a real case from one of our clients. Okay, it's a top real estate firm. Their challenge was they had a 40% turnover rate and they wanted to reduce their turnover rate. Of course, they approached us. We discussed the matter with them. We proposed one of our psychometric assessments, and we proposed that they introduce the assessment as early as the pre-screening phase, or as early as part of the pre-screening process. The result, before showing you the text and overwhelm you with the figures, let me just explain quickly what this graph is showing. What you see in green are employees who are still active and still retained through a 12 months period. And in the red, you see employees that were hired and terminated in the same year. When using psychometric assessments at an early stage as part of the pre-screening process, new people started coming in. Those people that came in to the company were observed over 12 months period, year over year, from 2006 to 2009. The result shows that every year, those that scored high job match were retained for longer periods than those that were scoring low job match. Higher job match equals higher retention. Employees who remained active for 12 months and more consistently had higher job match percentages. If you recall, just to make sure you are with me on the same page, here, employees who scored higher job matches the company were able to retain for 12 months or more. From 2006 to 2009, job match percentage for retained employees increased from 78.6% to 81.7%, while job match percentage for terminated employees declined from 80 to 78, 79%. What does this mean? Remember, I said one of the things that you need to consider when using psychometrics is to identify the success factors of the role. In practical language, the competency requirements and the behavioral indicators of the role. And for that behavioral indicator, how much do I want from it? For example, assertiveness. Assertiveness is a behavioral indicator. Do I want for this role too much assertiveness or moderate assertiveness or low level assertiveness? So this distinction is necessary to identify the success factors for a role. Hence, every year, the success factors were revisited because now they have people who are performing better. So they were studying those that are performing better, what qualities they have, what behaviors are they demonstrating that is keeping them performing high and keeping them retained as well. Because of this refinement of success factors year over year, we can see the negative correlation between the green and the red. I described this already. Predictive validity confirmed. The correlation between higher job match percentage and lower turnover validates that effectiveness of psychometric assessments in predicting the effectiveness of psychometric assessments in predicting tenure of the employee within the organization. And by the way, as you can see, this is a bit old. Now the challenge is even bigger because of the young generation populating the workplace. However, the challenge is bigger, but it's easier to predict the current generation from past generations. As I said, we'll discuss this in more details maybe another time. I'm conscious about time. We still have a couple of slides. Strategic integration. Where can we integrate the assessment? It can be integrated as part of attracting talent, recruiting talent, onboarding talent, developing talent, retaining talent, succession and mobility, as well as exiting. Okay, so if you look at the employee's life cycle within organization, the data that is provided out of a good assessment should be able to serve you in managing the employee's life cycle. Do not limit the use of the assessment on only development or only recruitment or only one factor. Okay, the cycle can be managed with the help of the data that comes out of psychometric assessments. I'm conscious about time. 6 minutes over the limit. I want to thank you very much for attending. I want to give you some time to drop your questions in the Zoom chat. And please feel free even to, if necessary and critical, to open your mic, okay? And if you have something direct that you want to address to me. Thank you very much. Shannon and Nadine, whoever is keeping an eye on the chat, can you please tell me what do I need to address priority?
So we had a question earlier from Sibel, I think, but you were able to answer. What do you mean by psychometrics?
Okay. Sibel, did she say I answered already or still the question is up?
I believe it was answered already in one of the slides.
Okay,
All is clear.
very good.
And there was a comment here that according to Siebel also, sometimes candidates provide incomplete or incorrect information on their behavior.
That's a very good question. And to answer you or to help you with this question, dilemma actually, um, there are, I don't want to go into another topic, but there are mainly two types of, or two categories of assessments. There is a category called normative assessment, and there's another category called ipsative assessment. Long story short, a normative assessment in general provides situational questions that makes it hard for the average person in the population to play smart on the system or to project themselves in a distorted manner. If it happens that the candidate try to manipulate the responses, try to polish reality, there is a measure built in the assessment. Some companies call it distortion, some companies call it social desirability. It provides a good indicator about how consistent the person was while answering the assessment questions, and then we can know if we can rely on the results or it's too distorted, too risky. Maybe the person repeats the assessment, or we just disqualify the assessment and rely on other factors. I hope this answers the question. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you. What other questions, team?
I have a question, please,
Sure.
Ziad. If we are using the assessment for training and development to assess existing employees in order to understand what are their challenges and strengths, so we can customize a training for them. And one a particular assessment, let's say, shows us that this person is low on a sociability level, but actually, in real life, he shows social traits. How can we explain that? Because I know that the assessment is very reliable. So how can we explain the contradictory?
This is a very nice question, and whenever it comes up, and since you use sociability or extraversion, I like to use myself as a reference. I am an introverted person by nature. My family, close circle of people to me, they know that I'm an introvert person. However, in my current role, I wear multiple hats, and all the hats I wear demands to an extent high extraversion attitude. So if you today you ask me to complete the assessment will show that I have higher tendency to be introverted than extroverted. But in reality, in the workplace, clients, maybe even peers and colleagues in the office, they see that I am more extroverted than introverted. This misalignment or discrepancy is likely to be seen. It's not something that is impossible to see. It's simply the fact that my DNA, my way of thinking, my most of the time tendency, I like to mind my own business. I am more productive when I'm alone. However, because of the benefits of extraversion that I learned linked to career goals, linked to performance, linked to rewards, and so forth, I was able to work on myself to learn how to conduct myself and how to demonstrate a more extroverted behavior. I will be honest, by the end of the day, I usually stay in the office to finish some work or to sit for some time, or in the car, or I come at home because I want to relax from the pressure that I was put on to demonstrate a more extroverted behavior. In the context of learning and development or training, Ziad, this is where training becomes important or coaching becomes important because despite the fact that I'm demonstrating a more extroverted behavior, because my natural tendency is introverted, training can help me sustain this skill that I learned and demonstrated. Coaching can help me manage the pressure that comes out of interpersonal and social interactions. So sometimes people need help to sustain and maintain their, let me say, call it their better version of themselves in the context, okay, being addressed. Thank you, Christine. Any other questions, ladies, from the chat?
Another one from Sable, I think, about EI. That's what we call EI.
Emotional
I'm not
intelligence?
sure. Yeah, I'm not sure in which topic she's referring to.
Sibel, maybe you want to open the mic and explain. That's what we call it, EI.
Yes, I mean by emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
When you said that you are an introvert person, but at work, so هيك you are extroversion because of the AI. That's what we
AI
call it,
plays
AI.
definitely. AI, emotional intelligence or EQ, is a competency. Okay, if you have it, you are able to adapt the right behaviors easier. If you lack AI, it becomes harder to consider how your behavior affects other people around you. I hope this makes sense.
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Fantastic. Now, if you wish, whoever is still here in the meeting, we would love to have one-on-one meeting with you. If you have any current or future need, or simply if you want to have, a chat without any conditions, just a simple chat between two parties, I'll be more than happy and my team to schedule a meeting with you. Please feel free to get in touch and we will arrange a time and a date with you. Also, and this is as instructed by our marketing manager, please do follow us and connect with us on Instagram and LinkedIn. Okay, would love if you do that. Nadine and Shannon, any other questions in the chat?
That's about it,
That's it.
Hussein. Thanks so much.
Okay. Then we will conclude here and end the meeting. I'd like to thank you all for your time. Really appreciate it. And we'll be sending you a feedback survey. Please help us improve by giving us your honest feedback. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'll be closing the meeting, guys, okay?
Sure.
Shannon, you are recording on your end?
Uh, Let me check because someone pressed the recording earlier.
Nadine, did you are recording on your end? Nadine?
Hussein, there is a recording on my end, a recording button, but it's
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's from me because I received a notification that there is a recording.
Who is read.ai meeting notes? This is this is the companion. Who is recording, guys?
We'll check, Hussein.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much, and I wish you all a great day. Thank you.